Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here. Yes, the Alessandro Bastoni dream appears to be over. It was great fun while it lasted, but now it appears to have headed off into the sunset. It's as we said it was likely to be, though, let's be honest. He is Inter through and through, wants to stay at Inter. We've made no bones about that. We have certainly spoken about that in recent videos, and it was very much going to be about whether Inter needed to sell him. It appears now they do not, because it looks like others are probably heading out the door rather than him. Let's start. What I'm going to do, just for this video, just so you know, I'm going to do a little chat about some kind of housekeeping, as I like to call it. Talk about Bastoni, talk about other centre-back targets, talk about Fraser Forster signed today, of course. Little touch on the new kit, I guess. We'll talk about that as well, and some other little bits and pieces. And I'm going to do kind of almost like a half Q&A, because I've got so many fantastic questions in the comments of the last video that I'm going to try and do half in this one, and then I'm going to do maybe a full proper Q&A for the next video, because there were so many. There were so many really good ones, and ones that made me laugh that I want to answer as well. So yeah, so it's a bit of a half and half video, this one. I should just stress, it is a day off. And as in for me, and I know there's this thing that good things always happen when I'm off. And yes, Fraser Forster has signed. We're going to talk about that. But there are a few days off I have where other things that aren't so great for Spurs happen as well. So yeah, everyone wishing for me to be off and have holidays doesn't always work like that. And as we see today with Alessandro Bastoni. So yeah, like I say with Bastoni, it was going to hinge on whether the Inter needed to sign him. That was what it was going to be. And his agent, Tullio Tinti, the fantastically named Tullio Tinti, he obviously, we heard earlier in the week from him saying that, pretty much similar to that, if Inter need to let him go, he'll be professional and he'll respect that. But then obviously he's gone to Inter today, had a big meeting. I think he's also the agent of Inzaghi, the Inter boss as well. And I think they're sorting out a contract for him. A new contract for him. So I think it was probably a twofold meeting, at least twofold. And obviously spoke about Bastoni, and then he came out, and the local press who were waiting there for him grabbed him. And there's two quotes that seem to be floating about that have been attributed to him. First one, if I can reassure Inter fans, absolutely. Bastoni will definitely remain at Inter. And then the other one that's doing the rounds is Bastoni will stay at Inter for sure. He has a contract and he's happy with Inter. There's no problem. And just in case you were thinking, it's not a real quote, maybe, we can hang our hopes on that. A little bit later on Instagram, I don't even know if I'm going to pronounce this right. Solo è disclusivamente Inter, which is an Instagram account obviously doing Inter Milan news, put up, I think it was the latter quote they put online. And underneath, Bastoni himself commented, just with two hearts, the Inter colours. It's one of these things. There's two sides to look at this. One side is from Bastoni's point of view, and hey, in football, yeah, of course, Spurs haven't got their man. But again, on the flip side, he's an Inter boy that wants to stay at Inter, I think someone said he got a tattoo after the Scudetto, a big Inter tattoo down his arm or something like that. If this was, let's say, Harry Kane came out with a big comment saying I'm not going anywhere kind of thing, and the club don't have to sell me, all of that, we'd all go mad for how fantastic that was. So there's that side of it, and I get it. From Tottenham's point of view, yep, he was one of their main centre-back kind of on their wish list up there at the top, one of the top two. Paratici and Conte both wanted him. Ultimately, at the end of the day, the player doesn't want to go and the club don't want to sell. You've done everything you can. It's one of those where, of course, some people are just going to lambast it. Of course, they are going to say, you got turned down and all that. But what are you going to do? Sorry to use a kind of a bad stereotype Italian-American kind of voice, but it's true. What are you going to do? I think the key about it is, and that's really important, I think, is that Tottenham, this has happened early. Transfer window doesn't even open for another 2 days. June the 10th it opens. So I think you'd rather know now that a certain player on your wish list is not available, and then you come back to it another time Rather than with Tottenham, sometimes they do these things where they'll find this sort of stuff out right at the end of the window. Then you're in this ridiculous situation where you've kind of got to do a panic buy alternative. And they don't have to do this. They can properly now work down their list. And they can look at the other players that I'm going to talk about in a moment. And it's not the pressured panic situation that it could have been. So, yeah, of course, it's not the greatest news in the world. He's a very good player. And, they clearly think he's going to be absolutely top player. It's not to say that maybe they don't revisit this in a year's time or whatever, because I think he's only got 2 years left on his deal. I think his agent was asking about the contract, and he said if they want to talk about that, they can come to me, kind of thing, as if to suggest that wasn't currently something being spoken about. So who knows? In a year's time, situation may be different. So I don't know what's happened there that's changed. I would say the only thing that I think is a stunning coincidence is that on the same day, there's been real ramped up rumours of PSG going in strong for Milan Skriniar. If you remember Milan Skriniar, he was a player that Mourinho wanted a few years back at Tottenham. So I wonder now whether PSG going in for him, whether that, Inter have essentially said, well, we're only going to sell one defender. It won't be both. So, yeah. And there's De Vrij as well, isn't there? There's kind of talk about him potentially going as well. So, yeah. Essentially, it looks like they found their way of getting outgoings that don't have to be Bastoni. And I think the Inter fans would have gone mad, to be honest, if they'd sold him as well. So they would have been under pressure in that respect. But we move on. Like I say, early enough that, it's not the biggest issue in the world. It's just disappointing. Maybe he saw Ben Davies playing for Wales against Ukraine the other day. Ben Davies was superb. Maybe he went, not going there. Daddy Davies, as he's called on the internet by some. That very strange but funny video from that pre-season tour. He was superb, though. If you missed it, honestly, wow, what a performance. And this isn't... People are now going to say, you're saying this because you think they shouldn't sign anyone and Ben Davies should play every week. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that at all. They definitely need another left-footed centre-back to go in there as well. Of course they do. They need competition there. But Ben Davies played very, very well. And I do wonder whether he might end up with a new contract in the not-too-distant future as well, because I think he's only got 2 years left and probably playing the best football of his career right now, Ben Davies, as well. So, yeah, I think they just need one player to come in there and compete with him and give him a bit of competition, and they both drive each other up. So who else? Who else will they look to now? I mean, I've said before, obviously Bastoni was one of the top two that I was aware of with Josko Gvardiol from RB Leipzig. I said before with him that he's incredibly difficult to get, very, very expensive. Also wants to stay in Leipzig at the moment. Big boys looking at him in City and Chelsea, and there's been talk of up to 80 million euros for him. So I presume that the top two on that list are not going to be available this summer. Then I think in order, the next one in the list is Pau Torres, who Spurs tried to sign last year, but he turned them down. It's a whole different Tottenham Hotspur this summer. So perhaps that's what happens now, is that Spurs go back for Pau Torres. Obviously, this is the Antonio Conte Tottenham, a very different Tottenham Hotspur in the Champions League, of course. And I do think it probably helps in terms of the two clubs. They've got a really good relationship, Villarreal and Spurs. They've had quite a few players going various directions. They've had Foyth, Lo Celso. I feel like there's another one that everyone's going to tell me in the comments afterwards as well. But yeah. But there's a good relationship there. I know there is. And obviously, Villarreal want Lo Celso. They want him again next season. So I do wonder whether in the talks about Lo Celso, there's a little something you can do maybe with Torres. I mean, Torres, of course, Man United have been chasing him for a while. It's one of those, isn't it, right now, where Man U is the name. Perhaps you see that and the chance to play with Cristiano Ronaldo, all of that. But you look at Spurs, big team on the up, really, especially under Conte, and you've got the Champions League football as well. Obviously, Villarreal getting to the Champions League semi-finals this season just gone. So we'll see what happens with Pau Torres. But Pau Torres certainly, I think, will be next on that list. There will be others. Of course, there are. I said last week about Palace's Mark Guay. I know they like Gleason Bremer from Torino is another. I do wonder whether, obviously he's not for the left spot. He'd probably be more on the other side, on the right. I do wonder with what's happening with Inter not wanting to sell, whether Spurs push a little bit harder for Bremer now because they do like him. And obviously there's Barcelona's Clement Longley as well, who's a lot of experience. It's one of those where I think if they end up with Longley, people will be very much, he's not Bastoni, and I get that. Of course, he's not going to of the similar level, but he is a very experienced player with I keep getting told, a very cultured left foot. So yeah, I think there's some sort of potentially he could play left, or he can also back up or challenge Dyer for the central spot as well. But yeah, look, who knows what happens next? Like I say, the beauty of the transfer window, or pain in the backside sometimes for us when we're writing about it, is that things change so much. Situations change, doors open, doors close, and yeah, see what happens next. But yeah, it looks like Bastoni, unless something drastically happens at Inter Milan in the next few weeks, it looks like that door unfortunately has closed. But hey, it was fun while it lasted. We've got to talk about Bastoni a fair bit, didn't we? You'll all be far more aware of him if you weren't already. I always wonder that when you get stuff like this, how many of the people going Bastoni news and Bastoni have actually watched him play that much. We're all guilty of that, Sometimes I'll have to report on players that I don't know too much about. But yeah, it's always funny. We always get very excited by a name sometimes and an idea more than the actual person themselves. But yeah, like I said, it was good news today. Fraser Forster signed. So that means Spurs have signed 2 players before the transfer window even opens. What's this crazy witchcraft? It's really weird. I'm trying to think when I last was able to even report on that sort of crazy times. But yeah, obviously both free transfers. People will be like, "Oh, you've not spent any money." I get that, but they are much needed free transfers. Obviously, even Perisic is going to be a superb signing. The more and more I hear about his fitness, everyone's just saying he's got like a 20-year-old's body essentially. So he will be superb. And Forster, it's what he does what it says on the tin. Really, he's a goalkeeper that comes in as a homegrown player. Galini obviously is not returning, so that levels up one of their homegrown player slots while opening up a foreign player spot. We'll have a proper chat about that in the future as we kind of see where the window's shaping up. But the whole homegrown player limit is quite an interesting one, as always. It's not as drastic a situation it has been in the past, at least, but there's still little things that have to be taken into account this summer. Forster, 34, lots of experience. Played. Well, actually, I'll give you his quotes. These are his quotes on joining today. "I'm absolutely delighted. This is a fantastic opportunity for me. When a team like this comes along, it's impossible to say no. I couldn't get here fast enough to get it done. Everything about the place is world class. The stadium is probably the best I've ever been to. Ask any player in the Premier League and that's what they'll say. The training ground is unbelievable. To be able to come here and work hard, I'm very privileged. It's an opportunity I'm very grateful for. It'll be a fantastic season, fantastic to have Champions League football. Obviously, important to have got that. And now having achieved that, I'm sure the club will want to go as far as they can in the competition. I've played almost 50 European games, so if I can come in and help in any way possible, that's what I'll be looking to do." And yeah, he's an experienced guy, very good character from everything I'm hearing. He'll be good for the dressing room as well as being a good, you'd imagine he'll play in the cup competitions. Probably not Europe unless Lloris is injured, but if Lloris for some reason can't play, you are having a second choice keeper coming in who played something like 24, 25 times for Southampton last season. Spurs were showing the game where he was keeping out Matt Doherty in the Southampton Spurs game, although I would say that was also the game when he kind of dropped it in his own net. As some people have said, maybe should have shown him keeping out Arsenal because that was actually quite crucial in the end to Spurs getting top 4. But yeah, like I say, does what it says on the tin. Good signing in that respect. Backup keeper. Yeah, ticks a lot of boxes. What else have I been doing this week? Been speaking to some people kind of around Oliver Skipp, kind of finding out what's happening with him because I've had a few people obviously asking me how's he getting on, and delighted to say he's really good fitness-wise. He'll be absolutely ready. He's ready and raring to go for first day of pre-season to hit the ground running. No issues there. He'll be back and ready to go, really, which is great. With his situation, in case you've missed it somehow, you've missed the whole Skippy saga. He's had an injury, a pelvic injury, very unpleasant one that he's been carrying since October. He was. Eventually, I think it was end of January, something just had to be done because it was too painful. Spurs tried to manage it with an injection, which was meant to help with the pain. It didn't really work. And unfortunately, you'll remember I kept having to ask Conte about him. Conte was getting more and more frustrated, kind of lashing out a little bit publicly at the medical team. But it was just one that eventually they got sorted. He was sent off to see a specialist in America in April, had a minor operation, and it looks like it's done a job. And from what I understand, towards the end of the season, he was actually out on the pitches, running, did a bit of ball work. So, yeah, for pre-season, he should be absolutely 100% and ready to go and all fixed and not an issue for him anymore, which is massive. You know what my opinion is on Oliver Skipp. I think it's going to be absolutely class. Fascinated to see where he fits into the midfield kind of conundrum, because now it's a good conundrum. There's some really, strong potential partnerships there, and we haven't even seen Skipp and Bentancur together. It was interesting. I didn't realise that Jose Mourinho didn't actually want Skipp to go on loan to Norwich because he wanted to keep him in his squad at that time, and it took a little bit of, I think, negotiation to get him out there in the end, and actually it ended up making Skipp, really, because it was such a big season for him. And then obviously a breakthrough season for Spurs last year was tremendous. So many man of the match performances as well. 2 I remember back to back when I asked Conte about him and he was raving about him. So yeah, he'll be back, and yeah, good to see him back. Another midfielder, I've been kind of speaking to people that know him well, Pierre-Emile Hojbjerg, because I think he's been getting a bit of flack, which I think is a bit kind of unfair. It's interesting the way it goes. I do think sometimes it's fashionable to have a go at players, and sometimes it's fashionable to like them. Like, I think Ben Davies rightly is getting a lot of praise again, when obviously he had a lot of people having a go at him. And now, he's the Welsh Maldini and all this sort of stuff. And I've seen images of actually Paolo Maldini with Ben Davies' head on it and stuff like that. And then, others have got, even Emerson Royale. Emerson Royale obviously get a lot of criticism. And then I've seen people, because he puts these compilations on Twitter, he's become quite a fun character, and people give him a little bit more leeway because of that. It's really interesting, the psychology behind it all. And now with Hojbjerg, I feel like he was getting a lot of flack, I'd say unfairly. Look, he had a mid-season dip, of course he did, in form. He really, really did. Not so much as many other players, but certainly in the middle of the season, maybe it was the constant changing of midfield partners, I don't know, but it didn't quite work. And then I don't think it's any shock when he got an experienced calm head alongside him in Rodrigo Bentancur. I think his form suddenly picked up as well, and I thought he actually started the season really well, and I felt he finished it really strong. It was big performances against Liverpool, North London Derby he was very good in as well, and I think I remember him being really good at Leicester as well, kind of played a major part in the turnaround. So, yeah, I've been speaking to people about him, and he is a fascinating character. I haven't sat down with an interview with him. I'm hoping maybe get him in Korea or something. But he is fascinating. Apparently, he's incredibly intense. One of the most intense people you'll kind of speak to in terms of, like, just in every day in the dressing room. He is part of the leadership group within the squad, one of the senior kind of players. He's got big opinions, which he gives on everything. He's liked, he's a very inspirational character. Apparently, he can be a little bit much for someone that people that maybe don't know what he's like and don't know, whoa, this guy is like a full-on kind of thing. So that's fascinating. I think you have to kind of get used to just how driven he is. And I think we've seen that maybe in some of his interviews. You can see the way how intense he can be. It really leads by example, though. From what I understand, he's played with a fair few injuries when he really probably shouldn't have played, but he did not want to let the team down, and he's played. So, he soldiers on in terms of training. He Him and Eric Dyer, I'm told, are like the first two in the training ground every day, and they're among the last to leave. He is a very committed guy. He's fitness-wise ridiculous. Conte's whole nutrition stuff was no issue for Hojbjerg whatsoever. He's very much managed his nutrition very, very closely. Presumably goes back to his Bayern Munich days. And also he's big into his yoga. Fair few people have told me they've seen him kind of doing his yoga at the training ground at times. So yeah, really interesting guy. Very honest, and I think he's very honest with Conte as well. Which isn't always a bad thing, because I get the impression that Conte does like dialogue with his senior players. It's a bit like Poch. Poch was very similar in that. I always remember Poch talking about Jan Vertonghen, saying that they used to clash in training a lot. He said because I think it was something like, because Jan's very clever and he's got an answer for everything. And I don't think that's a bad thing, as long as there's that dialogue and it's explained and everything's understood. And when you see the results like Spurs are getting with Conte, you're like, okay, fair enough. So yeah, I do think Hojbjerg is a man. He likes to question things. He has his opinions, but I do think mentality-wise, he's the kind of player Tottenham need. I do. So yeah, I think some of the flack for him has been a bit unfair. He's been brilliant for Denmark in the last couple of games. He kind of took his Spurs form into the international scene. Brilliant against France. I think he got an assist, but he was essentially ran much of the game. He was superb. And I think it was Austria the other day. He scored and he was voted man of the match as well. Superb. So yeah, I think he'll have a big season next year with the Champions League as well. And also, he won't need to be run into the ground. Only Kane played more minutes than him in all competitions. I think they both played 50 games each. So yeah, I think with the ability with Skipp coming in, Bentancur, probably another central midfielder coming in as well, you'll have that ability to rotate him a bit more, and you probably won't see dips in form that maybe were to do with either tiredness or perhaps because he, pretty sure, yeah, he was ill at one point as well, wasn't he? And I think maybe he had some after effects of that. So yeah, we'll see. But I don't subscribe to the Hojbjerg hate. I think he's a very good player, and I think he just, I think his only thing really is his passing can be a bit erratic at times, and that's something that no doubt every player wants to improve, and that'll be what he improves. So what else do we have? The new home kit dropped on yesterday. Wasn't it nice to see Harry Kane front and centre again? It's like one of those, isn't it, where you kind of... Look, I know it means nothing. Everyone can quite rightly point to the season where Gareth Bale was front and centre and then literally left about 2 months later, if that. But I think last year there was definitely a sense that he wasn't on there too much. And a good indicator is always the calendar, isn't it? And which players that Spurs tell the calendar makers maybe don't have them on the calendar just in case they're not there later in the season. But yeah, Harry Kane's very much front and centre, and yeah, he said on England duty essentially, this feels like a different summer. He feels freer because of how the team's doing, how the club's doing, how he finished the season. So yeah, yay. Kit's all right. It's okay. It's it is what it is, isn't it? It's not the most incredibly innovative design, but it's not. I like the little bit of yellow on it. I don't mind that. Yeah, it is what it is. I did think the video was quite funny with the little nod towards there's someone in the park, a lady reading a 10 things to do in Istanbul, and something about the caption when they were talking was something like, I can't remember what it was, but essentially it was a nod towards the Champions League finals is in Istanbul next year. Let's see, one step at a time. But Spurs have been there before in the final, so it's not out of this world. But yeah, it's all right. It's nice enough. A new training wear. I think we've seen Fraser Forster maybe wearing one today. There's some bright training wear. I think there's a black one and a bright what's the name again? Volta, I think is what it's called. The colour that Nike got is fluorescent colour. And you're going to see that on lots of Spurs training kits and bits and pieces over the next few months, and a little bit on that away kit, which It does look a bit like a wetsuit, but yeah, I'm not entirely sure. That I don't think that will be that long till that drops as well. And then the third kit, which looks quite a bit nicer from what I've seen. So there you go. Right, that's pretty much everything I think I can cover just in general housekeeping. So we'll switch to the Q&A, which I've got to go through the questions now. Right, unfortunately, which is slightly unfair to the people who are getting there first, I think I'm going to have to do it the newest first, because otherwise I'm going to have to scroll down. There was a lot of comments underneath, which is done. And like I say, if I don't get to yours, I will try to do it in the next one. So please don't be too disappointed. You may not care, but just in case you are. So, Benjamin Young asks, in a normal week, you watch the matches live. How many times do you then re-watch them? And do you watch the broadcast that we see on TV, or do you have access to other videos angles to re-watch the performances? Do you know what? I try not to over-analyse it. Otherwise, you can kind of end up just going down past it too much. So what I'll do is, obviously, I'll watch the game live. I'll be there. Then I will probably later that evening or the next morning, depending on when I'm writing about it, I will probably watch the key moments in Spurs often do a little highlights package. I'll watch it in that. I'll probably then watch it again on the match of the day coverage if there is one, because sometimes obviously midweek there isn't there. And that's kind of about it. We do have programs. If I really want to analyse a moment, I can go deeper into it and look at that a little bit deeper. But on the whole, that's probably it. I wouldn't watch the full match again because I was there and I have to pay a lot of attention to it in the first place anyway. It's just about mopping up maybe little bits and pieces that I might have missed. NMA asks, what do you think comes next for Niall John after his disappointing loan at Charlton? Do you think we'll risk sending him out again or integrate him back into the squad? I think the age he is, he'll be involved in pre-season, certainly in the early weeks, maybe go out to Korea. And then I think probably another loan is the thing he'll need. They've just got to pick it better, because that Charlton one was absolutely shocking. It really didn't work. Adam Barkley asks, hi Ali, I was wondering, where do you do your work? Do you have to go into an office, or do you have to / can you work from home? On the whole, I work from home. This room is actually my office, as it were. The way it used to be, pre-COVID, we used to go into the office a little bit more regularly, which we're now in Canary Wharf, where I work. And I would just, when I was working, my 4 offices, I guess you could say, Canary Wharf, Hotspur Way, Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and back then, my sofa. So when we were looking to move, which is now, about just under a year and a half ago, I said to my wife, look, wherever we are, because I'm going to do a lot of work at home, and I knew with the pandemic as well, it looked like we were going to switch to pretty much remote working quite a lot. I was like, I want to get a place. A little bit like a dream, because my dad used to have an office when I was young in the house. I was like, I'd love to have a room that I could just have as my office. And that's what I got. So this is this room, and this is where I sit on my sofa, which is actually also a sofa bed, so we can make it another room if anyone stays over. But yeah, you can't see it because it's on the other side of this camera, but I have my workstation all set up over there. And that is where I work. That's where I produce my articles. Colin, so we've got one in the middle. Jay Katz asks, with the recent release of the new home kit, do players get as excited as fans over new kits? I don't know, to be honest. I'd probably say it's an interesting one. I guess it's their uniform, so it helps if they like it. It's not really the kind of question we'd ask them. I presume there will be certain ones they don't like. I think Harry Kane did a little piece. Is it something called like My Favourite Shirt, something like that on YouTube? I remember seeing that a couple of months back. And obviously there's certain ones that he had that were his favourites. So I don't know if they get excited, but certainly, because they do all these photo shoots and stuff they do with the kids, they do them like towards the end of the season. It's a long while ago. Obviously they got to do it before they all head off. And I'd imagine when they see him for the first time, they'll probably be like, ugh. No, they'll be, hey, stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know how excited they get. I don't know the answer to this one. I'll say the question, but I don't genuinely know the answer to this one. Colin Brazier, I'm an odd one, but I'm proud of the fact that we seem to play in first choice kit whenever we can away from home, unlike some clubs I could mention. Does this come from Daniel Levy? Because it's happened for a few seasons now. I don't know. I must admit, I haven't really noticed that. Yeah, I don't know. It's a great point. I wouldn't imagine it comes from Daniel Levy, no. I'd imagine it just comes from something the club choose to do, as whether it's the coaching team or just the people that are involved in the kit. Steve Jukes is the kit man. He's the head kit man. Actually, I should point out, I'm speaking to him tomorrow about this as well. But if you, I think I've put it out on my Instagram story. I'll plug it again tomorrow because I'm speaking to him. But Steve Jukes, the Spurs kit man, is doing a massive auction. He's got all of these really cool things in. Shirts from various clubs, sporting memorabilia and stuff, loads of it. I've been looking through it. It's some incredible stuff in there. And he's doing it all for a really good cause. Tell you what, I'm not going to go into too much of it right now because I'm going to speak to him tomorrow. I can do all the details and give it to you properly. And I'll put the link out. I might even stick it under the YouTube video as well. But yeah, if you can find Steve Jukes on Instagram, he's certainly on. And you'll have seen a lot of the players who've been posting out links to his auction as well. Ledley King did it as well today. But all of the first team players who obviously he's very friendly with have been sticking out the link. And like I say, I'm popping to Hotspur Way tomorrow to have a chat with him about it as well. So keep an eye out for that. It's a brilliant cause, one that's very close to him and his family's heart. He lost his dad. I think it's to do with that. But as I say, I don't want to go into it too much until I get all the information to make sure I don't say anything that's not quite right. But yeah, keep an eye out for that because it is a really good cause. Next question. Let's see. Railway 79 asks, how do you think the World Cup interval will affect the Premier League, having to stop mid-season then try to get sides back up and running for the remainder of the season after the World Cup? I think it's going to be a very different Premier League season, 100%. There's loads of little new things. I think we were talking about this the other day, some of us as journos, and wondering how it's going to work, and players coming back in different stages of fitness. What do the players who aren't going to the World Cup do? They just have this massive break. I know they have winter breaks in other leagues, but this is like a long break. Are the clubs going to have to kind of play little friendlies and things like that? It's absolutely the unknown. And I think probably it's not going to be too set in stone right now, but I think as the season goes on, it may well be something that we talk to Conte and Korea about, because it is something they're going to have to start planning for. Because, yeah, it's a weird situation. It's not ideal. It's not been very cleverly thought through. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it works. And at the end of the season as well, how knackered they are next season. Jeep says, we clearly need a good free kick taker. If Ericsson doesn't come, who can step up? Say Sonny after that free kick against Chile. Wow. 91st or 92nd minute. Lovely free kick into the top right corner. And also, he played peacemaker. I know he's the captain of Korea, but he went over and sorted out to the Chile players who were having a big old fight with each other. He's in a good place right now, Sonny. He is. He's flying. What else we got? Naming rights one. John Brown who asks, nothing new that I've heard on naming rights at the moment. I know Todd Klein has been speaking about that recently. I think I've said it in previous videos. That's something they're constantly on, and they're just waiting for the right deal. They're not in a situation where they're panicking, and I guess 150 million coming into the club also makes that even less so. They're just holding out for the best possible one. From what I can understand, from what Todd Klein was saying, the key to selling them, he felt, was getting people in the stadium, seeing it full and how it operates. Whereas during the pandemic, they couldn't do that. So, yeah, I think we'll probably, hopefully, see that accelerate now that we've properly got everyone back and things are normal again. Q&A. Do you think our target of the so-called 6 players to be signed takes into account players leaving, as the squad may still look small considering 5 subs too? No, I think it'll be 6 and then replacements. So potentially more so. Well, no. I'd say maybe some of those 6 will cover replacements. But who knows? It could be anywhere up to 7 or 8. It depends who leaves. It depends. The problem is is you've got to build a big squad for next season. You have to, not only because of the substitutes rule where you're going to have 9 on the bench and you can put 5 on, but just the fact that, you know, it's going to be such a big season with the Champions League as well. You're going to need a naturally stronger squad. So I do think we'll see a lot of income. I mean, look, as I just said, brought in 2 new signings before the transfer window's even open. So there's a long time left in this transfer window. What else we got here? John Hoy asks, for the Q&A, given the reported rigour of Conte's pre-season training, what impact do you see that training having on Tanguy Ndombele? Look, I'm not jumping on the Tanguy Ndombele, kind of take the mickey out of his fitness wagon. That's a lot of words for a wagon. Yes. We know Tanguy has had kind of fitness issues in the past, but from what I understood at Spurs, he was in the fittest shape of his career, actually when he left Spurs. So I don't know what's been happening at Lyon, but if he is going to be part of Spurs pre-season, then like everyone, they're going to find it incredibly tough because Conte pre-seasons are horrible. I think I spoke about it in the last video. So, yeah. I wouldn't single him out. I'd say they're all going to have a bit of a nightmare, but it will benefit in the long run. Crikey. Alex Sandbridge, if reports are to be believed... Sorry, it's a long question, so I want to kind of summarise it. If a strike... Who would you sign? Money, no object. And who would you sign in... Oh, there's lots of positions. I'll tell you what, I'll just pick one. Otherwise we're here a while because he's picked lots of positions for me to say players in. I would say if money was no object and the player, it didn't matter whether they wanted to come or not, you could kidnap them, it would be Kevin De Bruyne because I think he's absolutely class. I do. I think he makes an entire team tick. I think there's other players, obviously you could say like the Mbappes of this world, but I think in terms of a central hub of a player who makes everything work around him, I think De Bruyne is just fantastic. Gage Reynolds, curious to know if you've watched Ozark, and if so, what are your thoughts? I have. It's one of those awkward ones that I've kind of watched in bits and pieces. I think I am at the start of the 2nd series was the last time I watched, but I must admit, I enjoy it. I think the actors are all brilliant in it, but it hasn't quite gripped me as much as others, which is why I kind of come back to it every so often. I will properly sit down and watch it at some point. Mello Z says, thoughts on Gabriel Jesus? Certainly is a player that Spurs like. He's on their wish list of strikers, but I get the impression that Arsenal are going to probably get him, and I think maybe that's just because they can offer him more regular football. Whereas at Spurs, I think he becomes a squad player more so, whereas at Arsenal, I think he probably starts every week. And that's, the strength that Spurs have got in those front 3 now. Okay. What else we got here? Liam Hennessy asks, which Premier League club has the best press facilities and the worst? Best without doubt is Spurs. Obviously, it's the newest stadium. It's phenomenal, their press facilities. And the other journos sometimes joke about this because it's my weird thing. Do you know what? All the incredible things they've got at Spurs for us press, the media cafe is fantastic. That's where we work. It is a cafe, it does serve food, but it's technically it's where we'll sit in and work after matches and before. The press box is terrific up there and everything as well. But the weirdest little thing was that in the toilets they have molten brown hand wash. It smells so nice. It's like the nicest hand wash ever. And when we did that play at the pitch day, all the players' showers also have molten brown body wash. And funnily enough, Charlie Eccleshare from the Athletic said, I was thinking about you when I was in the shower because the molten brown. I was like, oh, it's a bit interesting. But yeah, he meant very much about the molten brown. It smells incredible. And funnily enough, after the match, we got a little goodie bag and it had in it, and now in our bathroom, we've got molten brown in there. I'm aware I've said molten brown a lot of times. They are not paying me to say that. It's that was just one of those little things at the stadium that is very nice. Weird things that go through in my mind. Worst, I wouldn't say any a word. Look, how am I supposed to complain? I'm going to Premier League or Champions League matches, whatever, for free. I'm certainly not going to complain. There are some that are a bit tight and squished. There are some older ones that are a little bit tighter. Their press boxes to sit in. And some of the older stadiums obviously need a bit of a refurb. But I'm watching free football. I'm certainly can't moan about anyone being bad. What else we got? That's not a question. Oh, it's a homegrown one. Mark Payne asked about a homegrown one. I'll go into that in more detail in another video because it's a long-winded one. In essence, Premier League squad absolutely fine. Champions League squad will be a little bit tighter, but it depends on who goes. If people go this summer that we expect to go, then it should be fine. Who else we got? That's done. Kevin Roberts asked, why doesn't Tanganga ever get talked about as a right wing back? I think Conte could make him great in that role. I don't think so. I think he could be a very good centre back, and I think he could be really good on the right side of that three as a wing back. I don't think attacking wise he's got enough of the skill set to make that a success. But I certainly think he's got enough talent to play in that back three. I just wonder with him, I think versatility-wise, I think Conte would probably want to keep him around for the coming season. I think I said the other day he started something like 8 out of his 13 or 14 matches when he was available under Conte. Obviously, injuries played their part in that as well. But I just wonder whether, like Skippy, just maybe needs a loan to play week in. I mean, look what's happened to Cameron Carter-Vickers. He's had a brilliant season at Celtic. Jonathan, what I love about the Q&As that I get from you guys is that they're not always about Spurs. There's so many random things. And I know that slightly older chap who sent an email getting very annoyed that when I don't speak about Spurs, I love speaking about other things as well. Because as you can imagine, I write and talk about Spurs pretty much 24/7. Jonathan asks, what side dish is better, mash or mushy peas? Ooh, I'm not a huge fan of either. Mash is fine if it's got loads of gravy over it. Mushy peas, not massively fan of at all. But either, if you ask me, would I desperately want either of them? Probably not. Keenan D asks, are we looking at bringing in Ruben Neves? Yeah, it's gone a bit quiet on Ruben Neves. Spurs certainly have been interested in him in the past, but I haven't heard too much about him under Conte. I think it'd be pretty expensive as well. It'd be a terrific signing, but I haven't heard too much about him. I'll actually think about it. He might actually be coming towards the end of his contract. It might be in his last year, so maybe he isn't that expensive. Yeah, maybe keep an eye on that one. But like I say, I haven't heard too much about him, but it would seem a bit of a no-brainer, wouldn't it, to at least have a look at him. Certainly, I'd rather have him over another certain Wolves player that I think Paratici will no doubt have a little look at again this summer. That's a question. Lebon Monakisi? Sorry if I've butchered that pronunciation. Hi Ali, Jimenez as a Kane backup. I don't see why he'd come as a backup, to be honest. You'd have to come in if you felt you were playing. And again, this is the issue. And I know people quite rightly say, but Liverpool have got all these forwards and they all get game time. They do, but I think there is also this thing in players' minds about Kane. I think he's just so dominant. I think it's a perception. I think they probably would play... Well, this is the thing. Maybe they wouldn't. Maybe Kane is so dominant that he does actually play almost every game. Fiona Boxall asks, hey Alistair, who's the old Italian guy with the shock of white hair giving everyone big hugs on the sideline at each game? I presume that must be Gianpietro Vitroni, the fitness guy. I presume that's who you must mean. I can't think of anyone else that matches that description. Apparently he's a very pleasant chap, works the players incredibly hard, but also very pleasant. OTTV asks, what is your favourite food at the Spurs Stadium and the best food you've had in an away game? Ooh, favourite food at the Spurs Stadium. It's obviously because I don't eat the same food you guys are eating. I eat from the Media Cafe stuff, which is always very nice. I'd say probably the nicest food I had was when I got to do the review of the H Club. That was lovely food. That was incredible food. That was very cool. It was quite Korean based actually that day, which maybe sets me up nicely for the summer tour, which I'm very much looking forward to. In terms of away food, Chelsea used to be the best. Chelsea used to be incredible. They spent incredible amounts on. They had like just this spread, which was fantastic. After the pandemic, that became things in boxes, which were very nice, and you take them out to the press box. I don't know what they'll be with the new owners, how that will work. Yeah, they're probably the two best, I'd say. Spurs and Chelsea were certainly, but there's others that are all very nice. Again, it's free. I can't complain about anyone really at all. Let's have a look. What else we got here? Core Critical says, question, what are the realistic options for Dembele this summer? Is a loan deal the only viable option? It depends who comes in. You know, there was some talk I saw the other day of even Barcelona maybe coming in because of their financial situation. I know Spurs and Barcelona, I think Paratici's got quite good links with Barcelona, which is why obviously you got Emerson Royale last year, and there's talk of Longley this summer as well. I don't know whether anyone's going to pay that money. I wonder whether Spurs, because he had a long contract, whether you do just take another loan deal, maybe, you know, look for a loan fee of 7-8 million, maybe more, and then hope that he shines on that loan and his value goes back up again. But at the moment, I'd be surprised if anyone pays big money for him. Interesting. This is kind of links in. THFC 1882 asks, if speculation is to be believed, it seems as if we'll have quite a bit of interest for some of the players who would be available for transfer this summer, like Winks, Bergwijn, Emerson, Lo Celso. This has rarely been the case in the past, with players having to stick around. Is there a reason for this, Paratici perhaps, or just coincidence? I don't know. The thing that people used to say about Paratici at Juventus was actually that he struggled. That was one of his maybe weaknesses, where he struggled to get players out the door. So I don't know whether it is to do with him or just to do with those players' agents being good at drumming up interest, perhaps. I mean, Lo Celso, I think, has done it himself because he had a good loan spell. Obviously helped Villarreal get to the semi-finals of the Champions League. Bergwijn, Ajax have been interested forever in him. Winks, you know, I think he'll be an attractive proposition for some of those clubs kind of at the next level down, as it were. You know, got the likes of the Evertons and I think Palace maybe could be a potential bit of interest there as well. And I think, it's, again, another player that's been slated that is never going to be as bad as people say they are at all. And Emerson, I think because he had a very good season in Spain with, was it Betis? I think it was Betis, wasn't it? Oh, that's gone out of my brain. Where he went, I think it was Betis, and he went on loan. They went back to. Someone will tell me underneath. That's the beauty of not having remember. I know at least 100 of you will tell me underneath. Who else we got? Stephen Vaughan says, Alistair, is there any news on Joe Rodon now Wales have qualified for the World Cup? Surely he will now want minutes in his legs for the World Cup 5 months away. And minutes for Wales again. Are we loaning him or selling him? I think it will personally be a huge mistake if we sell him. There's definitely a player there. 100% agree. You know my views on this. I think Spurs should give him a new contract because I understand he's on a little bit of a basic one the one he arrived from Swansea. It's only got a couple of years left on it. So maybe boost that up a little bit to reflect what he's been doing, certainly for Wales, and the fact that he has played in the Premier League and been fine at doing it. And then loan him out in the Premier League. Give him a year. I think either way, I think he either comes back as a challenging player for Spurs, as in challenging for first place, not a challenging player for them, or his value doubles at least. So I think it's a win-win situation. If you sell him now, you're probably selling it at his lowest value, and I don't think there's really much point to it. What else we got? That's another World Cup one. We've kind of answered that one. Another Tungi one. Ian Loden asks, assuming Tungi leaves this summer, would you consider him to be one of the most disappointing signings we've ever made? Maybe even the most disappointing given how much talent he clearly has and how much he costs. I think he has to be. I'm a massive Tungi fan, but I think he has to be. He's the club's record signing and he really hasn't made enough of an impact. kind of reminds me back in the day. I just was so excited when Spurs signed Sergei Rebrov, and he just wasn't suited to the Premier League. It just didn't work for him. That for me was a huge disappointment. But I think Tanguy has to top that because the amount of money that was spent on him, unfortunately. Stuart Morgan asks, has Paratici found his number 2 yet? I don't believe it's been decided yet. I know he was holding final interviews a couple of weeks back, but it hasn't been confirmed yet who it's going to be. I think the buzz was it was likely to be someone from abroad. So hopefully we'll find that out in the coming weeks. Connor Baker says, with Barcelona's struggling financial situation, is there a chance we go back in for Frank Kessie, as they may not be able to get that deal over the line? I'd imagine they'll be able to get those deals over the line. I think they will. I'd probably see that would be unlikely, but yeah, you can never rule these things. Football is weird. Go Victoria says, shame Vardy isn't available to cover for Kane. I don't see him leaving Leicester, even despite the option of European football. Yeah, again, a backup player. Why leave when you're a regular to become a backup? Okay. Vijit Vergis asks, is there something in particular you're looking forward to in your trip in Korea, apart from the football, Korean food perhaps? I recently saw a video about Son introducing Korean food to Dyer, Hojbjerg and Lloris. Need your review on it as well to believe if Korean food is really that good. Also, it'd be great if you could learn the word oh crikey! Any young Haseyu, right? It means hello. Apparently, I will probably. Don't worry. I will be learning all little phrases and stuff to be able to say out there. Any young Haseyu, maybe. You can tell me if I got that right or not. But I of course I will. What am I most looking forward to? The people, to be honest with you. That's what I always love about the pre-season tours is how passionate the fans are about the club. And I'm intrigued to see in Korea how passionate they are about the club compared to how passionate they are about Son. I'm intrigued to see what that dynamic is like, the balance between the two. Really love to see new cultures. It's one of my favourite things in life, and seeing how other people think and how they act and what they do. So yeah, really looking forward to that. And the food, yes, will be an added bonus. Nate Hengen asks, how's Alfie Whiteman coming on? Do you reckon he'll at one point be starting for Spurs? It might be tough for Alfie. Alfie's out on loan at Degerfors in Sweden. This will be his second season there. I think his contract is maybe next summer. It's coming towards its end. I think he'll be back. Season will end midway through Sweden. I'd say it's probably going to be tough for him to be a starter for Spurs because of the people in front of him and the likelihood of Spurs signing a new successor to Lloris maybe next summer or the one after. I'd say for Alfie, yeah, he's going to be a very good professional goalkeeper, and I think that's kind of will be the future for him. Jonas Zimmer asks, could Troy Parrott become Harry Kane's backup or partner for next season? Troy had a terrific season. Really good season at MK Dons. I'd say now you push on. That was League One. I'd say the next step for me. I think he may well have a fantastic pre-season and really impress Conte. That may happen. I'd say personally, maybe you get him out on loan to a champion squad because he had, who was it last year? Millwall he was at. It didn't quite work for him. I think maybe have another crack at the Championship first. He's still very young. Very young. Is he only 19, maybe turned 20 yet? Yeah. I'd say it might be a little bit too early, but who knows? You could have an incredible pre-season. You never know. Every year there's someone that emerges from pre-season who you didn't expect to break through, and they do. So you never know. I don't know the answer to that one. Mungie32, how much does a youth player cost to develop from the youngest level up to the senior squad? I'll ask around. That's a really interesting question. I will ask around and try and come back with an answer for that one in a future video. Jay Yang says, are Spurs aiming to have a squad with 2 decent players in every position? Yes, that's exactly what Conte wants. Eddie Hadaka Tovar asks, aren't Tottenham going to buy an Eric Dyer backup? Maybe Longleg could be his competition, even if he's left-footed. Yeah, I think they'll want to have, like we just said, 2 players in every position. Joe Rodon is meant to be the Dyer backup, although didn't really play him there much when Dyer was out. So yeah, I think if Rodon goes, of course, I think they'll sign another one. What else we got? Yeah, I was talking about Bale going to Cardiff and being unlikely to come to Spurs. Daniel Harris asked, if Spurs can't afford Bale's wages, how can Cardiff? Because I don't think it's a case of Spurs really not affording Bale's wages. There's more to it than that. Whereas with Cardiff, he's not going to ask for a lot of money paying for Cardiff. You know, I think I read something. He's Britain's richest ever footballer, I think. That's, again, I think I said that before. That's not the be all and end all. Be all and end all. That sounded really weird. Steve Meaton, a question for the next Q&A. I keep reading that Daniel Levy has to sign off on transfers, yet when Paratici was appointed, Levy stated that he will oversee all football matters as managing director of football. Does Levy still oversee transfers, or has Paratici full control within a budget given to him by the board? No. I mean, look, Daniel Levy has to green light everything. Of course he does. He's the chairman and he's the man that essentially has the final say. But for the impression I get, pretty much all the control has been handed over to Paratici to do what he thinks he sees fit. And obviously it has to fit within the club's budget. You know, it's not like they say, you know, here's £10 pocket money, spend it well. You know, he will know exactly what the budget is, and it's the same budget that Levy would have operated within. I'm sure there will be certain ones where maybe Levy has a good relationship and it will be passed over to Levy, maybe with some English clubs or something, or some chairman. Maybe that's the way it will work. But on the whole, I think Paratici is taking charge, as it were. What else we got? Naming rights again. Coys King says, which player from the academy do you think has the best opportunity to step up and train regularly with the first team next season, aka the new Dane Scarlett and Harvey White? I'd probably say in pre-season it will likely be Alfie Devine, but I think he'll head off on loan. We maybe see young Jamie Donnelly get a little kind of a chance with the strikers to train with them, especially if Dane goes off, and Dane Scarlett will probably go off on loan as well, and if Troy goes again. Yeah, maybe Jamie Donnelly gets in there and has a little few sessions with the strikers. Do you know if Conte, same chap? Do you know if Conte has an extension clause in his contract? He's got an option. There's an option, but I think both club and him have to agree to it for another season. Someone having a rant about Obi-Wan series. I haven't actually watched the new episode. I think it's out today. Rob G asks, have you ever realised after reporting on something that information you receive is part of a PR negotiating tactic? How do you handle it? I've been a journalist for next year will be 20 years. So I'm very, very aware of the way people will spin information. Of course I am. You know, like I've said in the past, I used to do news before I did sports, so I've had to deal with councils, police, businesses, various organisations, so I know very much the way information is and how it goes out there. So I think hopefully the good thing about the way I do stuff, and I've said this in the past, always double source it, always, and not from the same location, as it were. So I don't think I could ever really be led down that path, because I always get it backed up by someone. Let's say it's a transfer stuff, I always try to get a second source on the other side of the deal. So yeah, it doesn't really work like that. Yeah, no, I mean, Spurs certainly may hold talks with, let's say, a transfer, hold talks with a player or a club about a player because they are trying to force another club into a move. That's slightly different, and that is actually something that is happening, but that's more them doing that as a kind of a negotiation tactic. Yeah, it doesn't really work like that so much. There are times, of course, when the club will say something about something and you're like, no. and you just make sure that you get the other side of it as well. And that's hopefully what good journalism is getting both sides of something. What else we got here? Zach Zimmerman asked about Skippy's recovery, so that's good. I answered that at the start without even knowing that was a question. DAYA asks, you have been appointed as Dr. Frankenstein of Tottenham. Which three players would you combine to create the ultimate Tottenham Hotspur player? Harry Kane for the ability to score. Gareth Bale in his pomp for the way he was able to just fly past people. And Moussa Dembele for his ability to keep the ball. So it'd be quite an attacking player. Callum Marbling asks, it's a weird question, but is there any plans for hotel stadiums? I think I remember it being in original plans. There was a big hotel block and I think some flats as well. But there's definitely been no progress on that I'm aware of. But I think it is still in those plans. Luis Rayado 88, will Spurs in the future do a tour in Mexico? I wouldn't rule it out. I mean, they've done, the last two have been to Asia. So I'd imagine the next one, I think there was some potential of Australian one this summer, which maybe now, perhaps that's something they do next year, or they go back to America. Maybe they go to America, maybe they go down to Mexico as well. This is Lewis Hamilton's driving by today. Fantastic. Let's see here. Portio asks, what do you see happening with Maxim Pascozzi? Played a few games last pre-season, looked good. Since then he went off the radar, didn't even get loaned out. Yeah, he was playing, obviously, academy football, playing international football as well. I'd say he probably does need a loan. Again, another one who'd probably be involved in pre-season, but I think it would be a loan move would be a good time for him. What else we got? Chris Callahan, does Daniel Levy influence on wanting to market? Right, I think the general gist of this question is would moving for Weston McKennie be influenced by marketing the club in the US a bit more? I'd say Spurs are pretty US pushed anyway because the NFL used to have Brad Friedel, Clint Dempsey. They've had their American players. Obviously, Harry Kane and Jimmy Fallon the other week as well. Weston McKennie, I think it's just a player that Paratici's always liked. So, yeah, I'm interested to see what happens with him in the coming weeks. Okay. Right, I'm going to answer. Let's pick a good one to finish off on. I've already asked. This is about Troy Parrott. Christopher Robinson asks, if a solid bid for Lucas Moura comes in, do you take it and who do you replace him with? It's a tough one. Lucas actually, I think, has been speaking. He's been doing some interviews back in Brazil, I think, saying that the club have told him they're happy with him and he expects to stay. And I'd imagine, barring a huge bid, that would be the case as well. It would have to be a big bid because I do think as an impact player from the bench to come in, I think he could be very helpful for the squad next season. I think he's probably not a first choice anymore. But I think it would have to be a big bid for him right now. I was going to try and finish on one more. So, James Tierney asks, is it impossible to become a sports journalist without going to university? No, not at all. No, I did, but there's certainly some newspapers and media organisations do apprenticeships. You can go in that way. There's other ways. There's many, many ways to become a journalist. Like I said before, I did it the long route. I did news for 4.5, 5 years. That was after having done uni and postgraduate course and fast track NCTJ course in journalism, and yeah, I did it the long way around. I didn't start covering Spurs till almost 6 years ago, but I did obviously local sport. I did League Two football. I did various stuff before that. But there's other people that have parachuted straight into Premier League football. I think there's different ways to do it. I probably wouldn't swap my way of doing it if I'm honest, because I think it gave me a really good training and background in a lot of the hopefully strengths that I need to do this job. But no, honestly, just look into it. There's many ways to get back into it. Key thing is you've got to love to write. That's it, because you're going to do a lot of it. And it has to be something that you probably do in your spare time and always have anyway. If you just kind of like football and you think, I should go and do that because I could write about it, it's not the way round to do it. I think you've got to love the writing, and then that comes after, the football element of it. But there you go. Right, I'm going to wrap up there because I've got to head off as well. And once again, I started a video with rain and it's ended up with sun. So, not sunny, unfortunately, but sunny outside. Obviously, the key point probably this is Bastoni not happening, which is a disappointment. But like I say, happening at the start, before the transfer window has even opened. If it's going to happen, let it happen then and crack on with the next people in your list. And we'll no doubt have more information on how that develops in the coming days. And I shall be here to discuss it, and we'll chat all about it. And like I say, don't worry if a Q&A question wasn't asked. There's hundreds to still get through. I can maybe even spin another 2 Q&A videos out of them, which some people are going, oh, great. But yeah, so there you go. Right, I'm going to head off. Let's see what the next 48 hours or so brings at Tottenham Hotspur. I'm sure there'll be plenty as normal. I am popping to Hotspur Way tomorrow to do that interview with Steve Jukes for his auction. So who knows who I will see there? You never know. And that's not a teaser. I don't know who I'll see there. Sometimes people take those a little bit too seriously if I say stuff like that. So there you go. Right, I'm going to head off now. As always, stay safe, stay healthy, look after yourselves, and I shall catch you later. Goodbye.